Tell me I'm gonna have to hold this.
Yeah, see, yes,
I got to hold this. Supposed to be, yeah, it's on.
yes.
It's been on. Anyway, my name is Fred Ripley. I'm the ENS inspector here. Our lakes manager has ENS background as well, but he's getting his Virginia portion of that done now. And what I wanted to discuss first was things to do with drainage and erosion on your individual lots as it pertains to, you know, your front ditches and things of that nature. I wanted to start with you may have read an article, erosion and sediment control. Okay. And oftentimes what goes in with that now more so than ever is stormwater management. Um, that's, that's become much more the thing now. And when I took the courses, it was just starting. Is stormwater management has become much bigger part of the ENS program. So platted drainage easements, if any of you read the article I put in recently, I'm trying to have everybody understand what a platted drainage easement is and if they have one. Some people have simply a drainage ditch, but others have what's called a platted drainage easement, which means when the lake was started, someone, engineers or whatever, looked at the topo maps and decided this is where water will most likely find its way to the lake, and we'll plat these, which means they were registered with the County of Orange. Excuse me. And so that was done, and those have to be respected. Some of them never had water go that way. That was a miscalculation on their part, but they're still platted and they have to be respected, which means they can't be built on. And if they are to be moved out of necessity to build a home or whatever, a structure, it has to be done with a special process that you go through, dealing with a number of different facets. But there is a way to move them, but there's a right way to move them. You can't just move it if you feel like it. And part of that drainage easement responsibility, anytime it's on your lot, it is your responsibility to maintain it and take care of it, which means, you know, it can't be filled with tons of leaves. It can have branches and part of a tree or whatever might be obstructing it. It has to be kept clean. If it becomes a road, you know, some of them turn a corner and you see it kind of eats out the side of the bank, that erosion, then it would be your place to do something about that, which usually requires armoring it with riprap rock or something of that nature. We'd love them all to just be totally grass lined, because the grass is what cleans the water when it passes through. That's why we'd prefer grass ditches in the front of your houses, but a lot of times it's just not possible. So that is the idea of a platted drainage easement. And a lot of times people buy the home and for whatever reason, it's not really told to them what that little dark line was on the map or what it was on their particular survey, but it is important. The creation of a swale. The other things you can do, I wanted to talk about things you can do on a residential lot to handle water issues other than the drainage easement itself. And that is, for instance, I've dealt a lot recently with people who live on the golf course. The golf course is not responsible for the water that goes off of their fairways and comes down through your yard. I know that personally because when my parents were alive and were here, they had it like Niagara Falls, and we had to do lots of things to change it. But there are things you can do to help control it on your side of the fence, so to speak. And we have contractors that like to do that type of thing. They're good at it. We can certainly give you names. And one of the things you can do is create a swale. Most of the new construction today, when I approve new construction lots to be built on, is I look at the topo and decide, okay, is this water going to wash to the right or is it going to wash to the left? And wherever it's going, it cannot go on the neighbor's property. It has to have a swale in the ground to catch it and bring it to the front. Sometimes if the lay of the land says to the back, we're going to let let it dissipate in the back part of your lot, but not directly on somebody else. That includes downspouts. If some of you know that the neighbor, not purposely, has the pipe attached to their downspouts and it's emptying at the property line, that's a no-no. That's just contributing to your problems. It should be taken to the street or to another part of their property and daylighted there. So whenever that happens, we can talk about that. But on new construction, they're told that. I write that up, and they're told about the swales that might be needed. You had a question?
My neighbor house that is ground that come onto my property. Because I have a property drainage easement. So how do you deal with that?
Well, if you have a drainage easement, you can empty downspouts and things into a drainage easement. I mean, that's kind of the logical way to do it, especially if there's no other logical place to be based on the terrain. We a lot of times bring it to a drainage easement as long as, they've covered it and whatever, those downspouts to a decent drainage easement. And I know yours is a pretty significant one, certainly going to handle any water that comes off their roof.
All that off and watch it all that. But then I pick it up, all back, pick it up.
Yeah, well, some of I would have to look at that specific thing, and I know where you live, and I can do that and see if we can come up with some suggestions. Even some drainage easements that I've been in the process of moving for association purposes, we've had that happen because the riprap that was used up top is small enough that the water blows it right down, and we've had to put it back up. So there are some potential solutions for that, but I would have to look at it. And it could be that those pipes need to be moved to where they come out farther down in the ditch and not up as high so that it doesn't have that force. So we can deal with that. Right, right. And unfortunately that happens with the drainage easements, and you're not alone with that. And that's kind of the negative of having one. But, if someone has a specific question on a drainage situation on their lot, I'm more than happy to go out, meet with you, talk about it. We can suggest solutions as long as you understand we don't work on personal lots. We can come up with people that are qualified to do that, but we cannot work on personal lots. The only time we work is in the right of ways in the front of your houses, which most of you know from the hard surface to the beginning of your lot is at least 10 feet. Okay. That's ours to maintain as best we can. So, as far as berms, another control is that we've used for the golf course. And the reason I bring that up again is because I've done a few of them recently. But sometimes it's not a swale, but it's a berm, a little hump, and it can be matted and grass planted on it and divert the runoff to a better place on your lot. You can't divert it onto the next person, but you might divert it into the woods or someplace else where it can be absorbed. And we've also used the berms for that type of a situation to control water. Most of front ditches, the ditches in front of your house is the drainage ditches in front of your house at the road are our responsibility to maintain as best we can. The culvert, a lot of people will be talking to me and I don't understand what they're saying. And then I realize they're calling the ditch the culvert instead of the culvert being the pipe that's under your driveway. That went in when that house was built or whenever the first house was built on that lot and there was a need for a way to get in there, they put a culvert in. And whoever did that charged whoever was building that house. So it becomes yours. It's your responsibility to try to keep it clean, to replace it when it gets rotted out. And that's something that we do on anybody with a selling a house. We have to look at that culvert. I know it doesn't always make us very popular, but I also know as a new homeowner, you wouldn't want that culvert that's part rusted out to be passed on to you, and you haven't had a chance to have anything to do with it. So if it's rotted out, it has to be replaced so that a new owner comes in and has a fresh start. Sometimes it just requires cleaning, and we have people that do a pretty good job of that. As far as the ditches, the proper way for the ditch to work is for the ditch to be the level of the bottom of the culvert to the level of the bottom of the next culvert it drains to. And I know that a large percentage of them in the lake, trust me, are not that way. They've filled in over time. And as we can, we try to re-pull or redig those ditches to make them better handle the storms. But it also requires, if we do something like that, for that culvert to be clean so that now instead of getting half the circumference of that 15-inch pipe or whatever it is, we're getting the full amount. We're having trouble with that just based on manpower, equipment, and we've been communicating with the board to try to, and maybe in the future, we can hire some independent contractors to help us out with it because it takes a lot to do that. And along with the other things, the roads has limited time to pull ditches. So that's an ongoing thing that I need the residents to try to understand. I'd love to be able to pull a ditch every day, but I don't have that ability right now. As far as pipes, when you do replace them, if you can put plastic in, that's a good idea because it's going to last forever as long as it's installed properly. If someone's going to put plastic in, I like to know that they know how to put plastic in. Plastic should be a minimum, and really by the book, 12 inches. A lot of times you can't have 12 inches, but we need at least 6, maybe 8 inches cover, because if you don't, you're probably better off putting metal in. Because the pipe has to have enough on top of it, and it should be compressed as they fill the sides, because the more that it's snugged in tight gives it its downward strength. So plastic is a good idea, but if it's going to be real close to the surface, it's not so much. It might be okay for your typical cars, but the first time you have a delivery truck over it, it might be a different story because it's a 2-piece pipe. The smooth inside is one piece that's fixed to the corrugated outside, and you can ruin one if it's not installed right or it doesn't have appropriate cover. Is there anything or any questions that anyone has about the subjects I've dealt with?
Is there a system in place to inspect occasionally to make sure they are maintaining them?
Well, when we do these disclosures we talk about, when someone's going to sell the house, we do a disclosure. The disclosure is to cite any regulation of, problems with the that are, violations, any violations outside the house. Okay, it might be that their number post is gone. It might be that their culvert is bad. And it might be that their drainage easement is full and not being cleaned out. Now, if we happen to see one in our travels, again, we're citing a lot of different things. We can send them, just like we do others, send them a letter saying, or an email. We usually start with an email. Some people, it's just an oversight and they fix it right up. And that's the way we like it, is we can address one if we know there's a problem. If it's brought to our attention, if you see something you know is wrong, that's why we have the problem forms that when people call in, we go out and look. And if we agree with you, we send them a letter or we start dealing with that problem until we get a resolution. So yes. Any other questions? You
Yes,
just
the-
call,
You could call the ECC. You can call the ECC or you can email us an ECC@loa.org. And we certainly can come, explain the situation and we can come and verify or, do an inspection.
Okay.
My house is 3 years old and it's becoming apparent I need a swale in my backyard. But the estimate was $5,000. And that's a big hit. Is there any compensation from the lake? Because
No.
it was a new house and it's 3 years old and all of a sudden now I have a drainage.
Well, there's no compensation from the lake, but I think, I don't know what kind of swell you're talking about and how far.
Stone.
Well, that's I'm glad you brought that up. The stone is where that money's coming in and it still sounds like it could be high, but again, I'd have to see the distance and everything else. Most swales, if it can be other than rock and it can be seeded and vegetated, it's going to be a lot better because the rock might look good as soon as it goes in. We try not to put rock in ditches until we have to, because all it does is catch every leaf and everything else. Before you know it, it's a major problem. And try to get down and clean that stuff without twisting an ankle or whatever. But again, there is no compensation to individual homeowners to settle problems on that lot. No. Huh?
Can I chime in really quick? Just related to that, because there's not compensation from LOA, but there is something related to that you can look into. There's something called the Virginia Conservation Assistance Program. And for projects that, first and foremost, it's a water quality improvement program. So it's something that the Culpeper all soil and water districts in Virginia do. But if you're doing a project that helps mitigate stormwater, slow down erosion, or improve vegetation cover in an area, they can sometimes support that financially. And even if they can't support it financially, they often have technical assistance they can give you, which is great. But the key there is it has to improve water quality at the end, by the time it reaches the lake, basically. So if it's something like putting in hardscape to help, move water faster, it might not be eligible, but that's something you can talk about with them, basically. And Virginia Cooperative Extension is a good place for technical assistance as well.
Thank you.
I have experience with that association, whatever. He just came out and inspected to see if it was good. It lasts for 10 years. And yeah, they paid 75% of what I spent to help. I live at the bottom of the hill, at the back gate, right by Flat Run Creek. It's right there by my house. And so I was eligible to do that and plant the right kind of things.
They do good. And a lot of times, I think it depends on whether the grants are available or not too. So it's timing as well, but they've helped several people. And I'm glad that Keegan brought that up and he can talk more about it when he starts talking.
Yeah, so
It's the Soil and Water Conservation District. In our area, it's Culpeper.
Culpeper Soil and Water, yep.
ask for Richard.
Richard Jacobs.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And as long as I've got this, I live at the bottom of the hill in the back gate, and everybody's 10 houses, everybody's ditch drains into mine and goes under my driveway and into the creek. And I'm waiting for help with that. The drainage ditch. It overflows, and if it's really, really bad, it overflows and goes around, out my back, goes all the way around, goes out the back of my house into the creek.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I need that.
Well, we're looking at several things. I mean, some things with some of the storms we've had, a certain amount of things are going to happen and we're not going to probably change that. Okay, but we are working, and I should say that a little more. It's really, I'll leave that to Keegan to talk about because he's He's really looking into the source of the problems as much as we can. And does anybody have any more questions about the things I talked about? If not, I'm going to turn it over to Keegan. Yes, sir.
Good morning. I've been here at the lake about 16 years and things have progressively gotten worse in terms of the water that comes through my lot. I have a ditch that goes directly into the lake and the volume of water that has come through my neighbor's yard and on its way to the lake has been like Niagara Falls, as you mentioned earlier. It has blown out the left side of my boat slip. And I've replaced it twice, at my cost. And this time it blew out the end cap that the galvanized pipe was in. Okay. And this is not the runoff from my property. It is the runoff from the streets, in the lake. This services the lake. Because when it first happened, I said, okay, fine, if it's mine, I'll just cover it up. And of course, it was said, no, you can't do that. And when you say to me, I have to maintain something, picking up twigs and leaves and that kind of thing that's collected on the riprap, because I put it in to slow the water down. The volume of the water is moving so rapidly. I have a video of it. It is mind-boggling. So when you say, well, the grass would clean the water as it goes to the lake, that is true. However, it wouldn't slow it down. It would probably be faster than it is now.
Right.
So and I have no problems picking up, cleaning it and that kind of thing. That and weed eating around it and all of that. But in terms of, it sounds like you two guys you've taken classes on how to control the water and berms and all of that kind of thing. We don't have that expertise, but you want us to maintenance. You call it maintenance. I don't call that maintenance. What has to happen to mine and probably the ditch of many other people is that it needs to be engineered so that it can control the volume of water properly. I put riprap in to control the erosion. Now it's overrunning my boat slip and eroding more, property or more of my property. As climate changes and the storms are worse, for whatever reason, it has gotten a lot worse. With that said, I can understand you don't work on other people's lots. However, the lake should bear some responsibility. We're not talking about the driveway, situations where you have to pull some leaves through it and clean it out every so often. We're not talking about that. We're talking about major changes that have occurred here in the lake, because when I first bought the property, I would get a stream of water, right? The whole summer. Sometimes it would be dry, as you mentioned. But now it is mind-boggling how much water comes through that ditch on its way to the lake. My neighbor had to put a baffle up to keep it from destroying his boat and his dock. So my question is, why is it that, as things change, that doesn't change? As it relates to, sure, I bought it 16 years ago. The situation was one thing 16 years ago, but it is no longer. And as we evolve as a community, that needs to be considered as well.
And I'm very familiar with yours, as you know, and Keegan and I have gone out and looked at that, and it is an issue. I don't have an answer at this point, but I'm going to turn this over to Keegan as far as now we're getting into stormwater, and that's really his thing, and he certainly has the expertise there. So
Hi, I'm sorry. I'm Kim Little. I live over on Meadowview Lane
Yep,
and I had the last big storm we had, I had water flowing down the side of my house, down the side of my driveway, going to the back of my house and going out to a culvert that's back there. And it looks like it's a natural ditch back through there that goes down to the lower level.
okay,
And I had that flowing through there. It looked like rivers
right,
flowing through there.
Right.
Now, what I do have is I do have a 30-inch pipe. I believe it's 30, might be 36-inch pipe that goes under the side yard that goes out to this natural drain from the culvert out front, the mid culvert, midway. Now, what happens is up the road from me, there's a 45-inch change in pipe under the road. So I end up getting everybody up the road from me, and I'm on the low level. I get everybody up the road from me. I get everybody on the other side of the road because it comes down, hits that pipe and comes across under the road and then comes down the pipe towards me. And then further down, there's a pipe that comes straight across under the road that comes into the culvert I have also. And that's all those houses.
yeah, and that's,
So-
a lot of that is dealing with crossover pipes. And that's something that Keegan is going to be discussing.
Okay, because
So-
I don't know what to do at this point. I've tried just about everything I can. I've stopped the leaves from being a blockage at all, which is what that was at one point.
Right,
I've stopped that, got that straightened out. I'm at the point that I'm ready to run pipe, 5-6-inch pipe along the side of my driveway, all the way back to the back of my house, and where it flows downhill back there, run the pipe to the natural culvert. It would be nice if Lake of the Woods, and I am gonna, and I haven't asked yet, if they could come out and go down the electrical
come
line
out,
area out back
come out and do what?
and clear that out.
I-
Make it deeper, just from over the years. It's gotten a lot more dirt and things in it and filled up more. It would be
Yeah.
nice if it were deeper, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a ditch, whatever it is on your property, we wouldn't be able to, but I can come out and look at what you're trying to do. I mean, I had a neighbor two up that had the river right up to his basement. And it never does that during,
Right,
but
it's out-
these storms have been
Oh, yeah.
unlike anything I've seen. I've been here since 2010.
Well, that natural culvert area back there
Yeah.
is not on my property. It goes
Okay.
back behind all of our properties.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'd have to come look at it
Okay.
so we can talk
And
intelligently.
and any other ideas? I just don't know
Yeah,
what to do.
just leave me your name and address before you leave and I'll be happy to do that.
I appreciate it.
Sir.
Thank you.
We live on what we are told is the second largest tributary to the lake.
Okay,
We moved in 2019. In 2020, our first introduction to stormwater was, there's a stream that runs straight, it appears to run straight down from Constitution Highway at the Apperson property. And then it hits a 90-degree turn at the corner of our property and two other properties. And RSA has a sewage tank right there. And our introduction was that it knocked that tank out and dumped everything in the lake. So the fellow named Nick Blankenship came out from your organization.
and so did I.
Okay, and he,
I met with you last and I just had a conversation about that with Joe Gonzalez last week. And told him he needs to look again because it's doing what it did the last time. But I
Well-
haven't forgotten you. I just don't have an answer for you yet from
Well,
them.
well, there's more to the story because when Nick was here, he said we'd put in that we really want to take care of the streams feeding the lake. So we're going to riprap all the feeder streams and stuff like that. And we'll be taking care of this because of all the sediment that's gone into Culp's Cove.
Uh,
And he said, that's in the budget for next year. Well, next year came and nothing happened. And so I think in 2021, I finally decided for my own peace of mind that I would pay to riprap it. And I went to RSA, the general manager of RSA, and I said, look, can't we do something? Your tank is not on my property, but maybe we can do something together and I'll get a contractor in and you can pay to run the riprap a little further and everything will be fine. He wasn't interested. So that's part one. And I noticed that you're doing a lot of dredging in Culp's Cove there where the stream dumps in.
uh-huh.
Number two is in June, we actually had two storms that were pretty close to each other. And your 60-inch culvert pipe couldn't handle it. The Lakeview Parkway is like an impoundment. The water was 6 inches to a foot deep going over Lakeview Parkway.
Mhm.
It roofed our crawl space, put 2 feet of water in our garage. We were having a birthday party for my granddaughter and we totaled 5 cars. So everybody got a new car, but you know, if you want to look at the bright side.
Hmm.
But your pipe isn't big enough, or that stream needs to be split up so it isn't 100 miles an hour coming up down from Apperson's to the 90-degree curve. And so I just wanted to explain what happened. And I mean, if you're going to fix it, I have flood insurance.
Yeah.
I was smart enough to
Yeah.
know that, I guess, but there's 2 ways to fix it. One is you could have a bigger pipe there, but I think what you really need to do is to split up that stream of water so you don't have one single stream coming all the way down that hill and hitting that sewage tank right on the nose. So,
Well, I think the first step would be armoring that area. And like I said, I had a conversation with him just last week because it's been on my mind since you and I spoke, but I can't make them do RSA work, but.
and I will say that there was no blockage in the pipe. I walked through that 60-inch pipe under the road. I walk through under there periodically and it's wide open.
You
So
know, I think
there was a
that,
lot of water going through there at the
I
time.
think that pipe was replaced not that long ago. If I'm not-
Looks new. Yeah.
And we're looking at that, and some of those things, again, is something that Keegan is going to be talking about. And also, we can do a lot. I don't know that there won't be a flood that we're just not prepared for, or that it's a one-time in however many years. But I had several feet, not high, but I had water in my garage that never comes in. So I
Yeah.
kind of feel that. So I'm going to turn this over to Keegan.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Keegan Anger. I'm the new Environmental Resources Director. We also have Holly Anthony. She's our environmental specialist. So first of all, sorry I was a little late managing an active developing situation. But also I want to acknowledge that, I mean, a lot of you, many people across the property are having true challenges. And I want to acknowledge that we recognize them. There's not always an immediate solution for them. And frankly, for some of the stuff with the sheer number of projects that need to happen, the resources just aren't there right now. But I want to go into what we're working on and what we're going to be trying to do on these topics. So obviously we had 2 absolutely massive storms this summer that caused widespread flash flooding. So those, I think, have revealed a lot of issues that were probably already there in, LOA-owned infrastructure and member-owned infrastructure when it comes to stormwater and beyond. And really, our stormwater system is all of these things. It's our ditches, it's our culverts, it's our best management practices where we have, retention and detention ponds as well. And it's deeply tied into, nutrient input to the lake, sediment input into the lake, and all of these other things that we care about and are working on. So we had some of our most immediate and noticeable impacts from our storms at the back gate this summer. So we had substantial flooding come directly over Flat Run Road and then into the Lake of the Woods property. That area was almost a couple feet underwater. I'm sure we've all seen the damage that's back there before. But that was one of the first places I was looking because it's where our impacts were the worst. And so I went out there with Holly and I, we went and measured all of our LOA-owned infrastructure in that section, kind of looking for, do we have a point that is holding things up? And what we determined is that based on the nature of the flooding, the way that it started at Flat Run Road and then came over the top, is that our culverts on the lowest side are actually pretty large, but the VDOT owned culverts under Flat Run Road are probably undersized. And I came out I brought the VDOT, Virginia Department of Transportation hydraulics engineer came out with me and a few of their other staff to go look at those problems. And similar to probably some of the issues we have on our own property, they may very well have been adequate when they were built. But now We've had changes in the watershed, the school, and other hardscape impervious surfaces have been added in the drainage area, which increases the speed and volume of stormwater runoff. So that's not something we can necessarily fix on our own. That's something VDOT has to do. I've been told they don't have immediate funding for that, and it's something that has to be initiated through a new project. But that's something that goes through local government, basically. So, but we're doing that process all over the property, but it takes time. One of the things I'm working on with Holly right now is a comprehensive culvert assessment. And that's something, you know, like many of you are talking about, areas where we have undersized culverts. And again, conditions have changed in this property over the decades. You know, there's many, many, many more houses here than there used to be. There's an increased amount of, again, impervious surfaces, which increases the speed and volume of stormwater runoff. So in some of these places, we're finding impacts to our culverts. You can see if they're undersized, often crossover culvert. I want to clarify as well. These are crossover culverts. There's a difference. These aren't the ones that go under people's driveways. They're all the ones that Lake of the Woods owns. They go under Lakeview Parkway and all the other roads that we have here. So that's the side I'm working on specifically. And in those areas, you can see some of them are undersized. And what can happen there is when we have such massive storms, the water hits that point, it starts to back up because there's not enough volume for it to go through the pipe. It can either start undercutting the bottom, it can go over and start undercutting the road, or it can back up behind and cause flooding to whoever's upstream of it. So many of those culverts probably, again, they've been put in, that's not necessarily with thorough like hydrologic surveys to go with them, which can lead to, again, undersized pipes. So Holly and I are going through, we got a whole program to basically go assess every single one of our 417 collectively owned culvert pipes. Again, that takes a little bit of time. We're working on a pilot program to have volunteers help us with that as well. Here. So basically, what I'm trying to say is that absolutely we have large problems from storms and stormwater, and we're working on figuring out where we can fix on those solutions. So we've got some money to do what we can this year to work on culverts and ditches. Realistically, it's not going to get us anywhere close to the scale of the problem that we have. So it's something we're going to have to be continuously working on. So we're also doing that for ditches. Again, ditches is something, like Fred said, there's probably easier to find a ditch that doesn't need to be done than it is to find a ditch that does need to be done. It's another thing we're trying to get up on surveying for our mapping program. And what it'll help us do is it'll also help us kind of diagnose problems in the future. We'll always have an entry for each of our culverts and ditches. I'm talking about the roadside ditches, all the way like in between members' homes and roads. There's also the streams we're talking about behind folks. Most of them are drainage easements. I would call them, yeah, creeks, streams, but most of the time they're a drainage easement for folks. Let me get through a little bit and I'll take some questions right after. So I already brought up some work that goes into what happens on what funding is available for basically for member issues that are having on their property. And that's why I brought up the Virginia Conservation Assistance Program and the Culpeper Soil and Water Conservation District. And getting into that in terms of being eligible, like I was talking about, is how does that work improve water quality downstream? And so that usually involves slowing down stormwater where possible. So when I've talked to Richard Jacobs, is the main staff person there who's helps administer that program. That example of that might be on a drainage easement is kind of doing stepped pools. So you've got, instead of having a straight track that moves water really fast, you've got kind of like a terraced pool system. And then it flows over, goes down rocks to the next pool. It gives it a little space for water to infiltrate and slow down before it keeps going. And so when we have flash flooding, and again, as Fred mentioned, there's certain levels of flooding that are going to have impacts beyond what our infrastructure can handle. That's just reality. Unless we're, it's something we can build up to, but that's not something that can happen super quickly. So basically what I'm saying is those programs are available. focusing on vegetation, especially on slopes where folks have really steep, there's a lot of properties where folks have steep slopes that are not well vegetated. And those can slip really easily. A lot of people had mulch on those slopes, which it helps a little bit with erosion prevention, but often all the mulch just gets sloughs off into the ditch. Same thing with gravel on driveways. It's those long, steep driveways, water runs down a path that's vertical, and it brings all the material with it. And that some of that gravel often ends up in the ditches as well, or in member culverts. So those are the kind of things that we're working on right now. Ollie, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add on our actual mapping program, but basically what we're working on is a full survey of our LOA-owned culverts, crossover culverts, so we can analyze them for, are they big enough? Are they having active issues? Are they impacting other infrastructure? Are they likely to cause flooding in other places? So we can prioritize which ones we're going to replace, and then basically try to find every avenue of funding for that to begin the work on it. And we're doing that for culverts and ditches. And then there's the overall infrastructure that impacts, greater numbers of people. And those are kind of our larger best management practices. That's like the work that's happening at Patrick Henry. Those are also part of our stormwater system in terms of which areas are we having the worst impacts that we're putting in ways to slow down and manage stormwater.
One thing I might add, and I know I see at least one of my neighbors here that has one, and that is some of the platted easements are actually considered live streams. The difference being is there's normally water running to some degree in it at all times. One in particular that's near my area is on Gold Rush in section 2. And we paid, the community paid quite a bit of money to have live stream reconstruction done where they put a rock in a certain place, they plant certain types of vegetation and whatever. And that's a different ballgame, because even the Army Corps of Engineers can get involved with a live stream and tell you yay, nay, or whatever. So that's another thing we have happening in here, not as frequent, but I don't know if Keegan wants to share anything on that, but I just wanted to let you know that there are some that are even more controlled than the drainage.
Yeah, I'm happy to take some questions. So we have one up here.
Running all the time. And it was eroding the yard, and large hunks of our yard were falling in. So we were required to put 103 feet of bulkhead on that live stream at our own expense.
Yeah, and I don't.
Yeah, I don't know I don't know who required you to do that necessarily.
LOW.
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
I don't have the context for it right now.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, that's part of it. And that's part of the challenge is that, like, as Fred mentioned, the drainage easements that are located on member properties are under member responsibility. And that's, some of the scale of the problems that folks are having, they're very difficult to deal with for individual member.
For years, and it was only in the last few years as climate change has kicked in and these huge amounts of water come down, and it's taken care of now. We did it. It's bulkheaded.
Mhm.
But my question is there a difference between a drainage easement and a live stream?
I think the difference is in terms of how often water is flowing through it.
Yeah, well, this one has water in all the time.
Right.
So I consider it to be a live stream.
And correct me if I'm wrong here, Fred, but a live stream can still be part of a drainage easement.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
Sorry.
the drainage easement. It
Yeah.
shows it on the plat, but it's a stream,
Right.
not just a platted drainage easement. It's a stream.
It's both then. So it's a stream and a platted drainage easement.
Yeah.
Right.
I have we used to call it a wet weather spring. It runs when it rains. But it runs along the property lines of 7, 8, 9 lots. Whose responsibility is it when a tree, somebody falls into that drainage easement, dams up the creek, causes flooding on multiple lots?
The responsibility. Unfortunately, the responsibility is from the lot owner where the tree
That's
fell.
what I thought. It's not on my lot. It was on, well, lot fell and then
Right.
dammed it up and caught. It flooded 3 sewage tanks.
At that point, someone need to call the ECC to reach out to us that we can,
We did. I did.
okay,
The lady was contacted. She was, you have to cut the remaining part of the tree out of the creek.
okay, what is the address?
I think, he has it on, he's contacted her. We have.
Okay.
seen it. My point is that if that drainage easement runs along the property line, it's both sides of the easement. We have the responsibility to do whatever needs to be done. I
Yes.
stabilized my side. I've lived here for decades. I stabilized it a long time ago. But nobody's ever done anything on any of the other side of it for several hundred yards. Matter of fact, they blow leaves into it. I'm the only guy that gets out there and cleans it out 2 or 3 times a year. All the way up to the thing.
Right,
So maybe a little communication, these people have property lines on easements like that. But they have to keep it clean, and the erosion is their problem, because nobody behind me seems to understand that.
okay, yep.
Yeah, we had, she was first and then we got you and one in the back as well.
I have a question, kind of suggestion. Do you know how many plotted drainage easements there are in the lakes?
I don't know if you two do.
I don't know the number. I mean, we have mapped, we know where they are, but I've never counted them, no.
I was just wondering, is there a way to mark them so that when you're going out to look at ditches, you know that this is going to flow straight into a drainage easement and make the other residents keep their ditches clear, or if you have to clean them out, do so?
I mean, I think at some point, all ditches are going to lead to a drainage easement or a direct outlet to the lake. Right, so it's all part of the drainage system. So in terms of what you need to do to maintain culverts and stuff, yes, that is the folks who own that infrastructure's responsibility. Do we necessarily have the ability to get everybody to do all of those things properly? No, I think we've seen that that's very difficult to do. Not that we don't try. But absolutely, that's something that we need to be working with on people is
Yeah.
proper
because,
maintenance.
I mean, the landscapers along my street, they just blow all the leaves in the ditches there that come down into the drainage easement. For 13 years, my daughter and I are out there digging out the leaves out of that easement, and it gets old. And it gets expensive. And I've got people that have the ivory that's covering the whole culvert underneath the driveway, which forces the water into the road, which brings more crap down my way.
Right, yeah, please.
You brought up one thing I'm glad you brought up, and that's leaves. All I can say is, if you see someone blowing the leaves as part of their cleanup into our drainage ditch as a place to leave them, you call us and let us know. I know you've all have seen it, but I'll go by and I'll see a drainage ditch, the level of the front yard, and I know darn well that God didn't put them there, okay? And I've told our people with the suction machine, go right around that, because we're not picking up your whole front yard of leaves. And we'll send them a letter or whatever it takes to tell them, go clean it out of your ditch. And if you see a landscaper doing that, and I've stopped many of them, and if I see a pile by the road, I'll stop and say, you are picking that up. So if you see someone doing that, let us know. We'll do our best to control it, but that's one thing that's really, really tough on the guys that work so hard with those machines trying to clean the ditches, to come up on one that's, 3 or 4 yards full of stuff. And I don't know what they think when the yard is just as clean as could be and the ditch is up to here. It's a little obvious what you've done. So please let us know.
It's told that I actually have to see them doing it when I call, so that someone come out, because like my neighbor, he'll blow his leaves
down along the property line, which goes right into the drainage ditch, but he'll do it when I'm not at home.
Well, try to keep an eye on that. And I know where you live and I know the specifics of to the left of you, and I'd be happy to talk to them about that. Thank you.
I still don't understand, when you have a right-of-way road, are the adjoining properties responsible for it?
Now, that's something. I'll let you deal with that because it has to do with someone clearing the right of way and making it dirt. Explain to Keegan what you did.
We have like a right-of-way road across the road from us.
Electrical.
And the person went in and wanted new sod, so they took all the bulldozer came in and cleared the whole yard and the right-of-way road. Then they put the sod on the lot, and the right-of-way road is just all mud now, draining down. Who's responsible for that? Are the neighbors responsible?
And you said it's cleared because of a utility easement?
It's like, yeah, for the electrical trucks to go back to the wires and that sort of thing. So it's wide. It's not like a.
That's one I would have to come out and see. And
I
so,
would like you to.
yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely.
I'm glad I'm thinking of something that I didn't explain to you when you and I spoke. The right of ways, most of the time, they're mostly electrical right of ways. And they do have, I tell people, it might look like a great place to put your tomatoes, but when he drives over it, he doesn't have to say sorry or anything else. It's his right of way. But just so that you know, property lines usually go to the middle wire of an electrical right of way. That means you own 15 feet and the people behind you own 15 feet. Sometimes on longer lots, our 200 or so lots, most of our lots are about 75 by 150. But in some cases, one person gets the whole right of way, so 30 feet of their property. So to answer your specific question is, if he cleaned over to what is his land, then he's responsible to stabilize it, and I will look into that. Okay, that's a responsibility he had for clearing and denoting the land. So I'll look into that one.
Right, one question in the back first and then up front.
Hi, I think maybe Keegan, you might have come to my property at 312 Mount Pleasant to talk about the erosion from the beach to our property. We have two problems. We have a live stream. We have a very old bulkhead. In 2017, the real estate agent, we asked to have an inspection of our bulkhead, and he only came up with $2,500 worth of work that needed to be done before we bought our property. We've already replaced the bulkhead around the dock, and more than $50,000 in bulkhead. We still have half more to do on our property. There's only about 20, I would say 20 feet, or maybe 10 feet. That's our property. And then there's a cabin next to us that's owned and only visited 3 or 4 times a year. There's trees with the last storm where their roots are coming out of the water from the stream that's not bulkheaded, that have potential to come on our property that belong to him. So we have an issue with neighbors. They're very nice neighbors, but they're never there. And so it puts us in a really bad position that if their tree falls on our property, it's going to hit $11,000 shed and a $10,000 golf cart. I don't know how to resolve that with them besides telling them they're not going to do anything about it. The second thing is the beach, 1 of 2 beaches out of the 8 don't have a bulkhead. We get all the erosion of the sand. I think you saw it on our property. We are now dry docked because you let the lake down so low, and I feel bad for anyone that got flooded. I wouldn't want to be flooded, but now we have no water. We can't get our boat out. And we didn't have this problem. We bought our property in 2017. So we bought lakefront property that has no water because of the erosion from the beach. And we were told 4 years ago, we can't bulkhead that beach because the kayakers need it to come in. Well, I'm a kayaker. We built steps. It prevents the erosion, allows me to get on the steps, get into the water and kayak. So we're not getting cooperation to allow us to have lakefront property that we paid a high premium for. We're maintaining bulkheads and we'll do the rest of the $50,000 bulkhead that we have to do to maintain the drainage from everybody's drain that comes down the stream so that nobody gets flooded. But we don't get the same consideration that we have just sand, no water, and can't get our pontoon boat out.
So a few part question there, so I'll try to get to the sections that I can. So a few things. One, on lake level, yeah, we're down quite a bit right now. We're down about 7 inches. So the last time we lowered it was for a storm in July, I believe, or possibly August. I'd have to look at my records, but we lowered it down about 3 inches. The storm didn't materialize. So the rest of that now we're down about 7 inches. That's natural in terms of just evaporative processes. We haven't had a lot of rain since then. So that's why we're at where we're at on the lake levels. I have looked at that beach. I'm with you. There's a lot of erosion coming off of that beach. And in my opinion, it is something that needs to be worked on. There's a lot, I was doing our culvert survey there too. There's a culvert there that's completely buried. It's supposed to have an entrance and exit on both sides of the parking lot there. So yeah, it's another spot. Their work can be done on that beach to help prevent the erosion itself. It's another thing that we don't necessarily have the ability to do right away.
Over the last 5 years, you could have someone come and get in the lake and get the sand moved so we can get our boat out. My husband has Parkinson's. He is not young, and I can't do it myself. That's what you can do because we've done it twice because you won't put a bulkhead on the beach.
The dredging is a separate issue, but
It's not. It's all that needs to be done so that we can get our boat out. That's all I ask because I don't think we should be doing it when it's the beach that's causing it. And we've asked 3 times to have a bulkhead put on the beach.
there's yeah, that's something we're still talking about, but okay. Yeah, I understand. It's frustrating. There's a difficult problem there. Again, with the manpower being the way it is and the fact that we have to address problems for everyone, it's not something I can promise right now to have somebody come out and dig out your dry dock boat. We had a question up front as well. First, and then we'll go back. Or start with you and we'll switch. Okay.
I was just curious, the 2 organizations you talked about that could provide financial resources to individual homeowners, if the point of it is health of the water, health of the lake, would they be able to provide financial resources to LOA?
For certain projects, yes, and that's something I'm looking into. There's areas, again, this would be, if I was going through it, if I was reaching out to them for me to get the grant, and when I say me, I mean representing Lake of the Woods, that would be for work that is happening on Lake of the Woods property. But yeah, that's absolutely a resource I'm trying to use. I'm trying to take basically any funding I can find, and if I'm actively looking at other grants as well. I know the governor, because the flooding has been so bad this year, has put out grants. I don't know if those are available to us specifically yet because they haven't released the criteria for them, but those are things I'm looking at because with those types of projects, I can help more than one person at a time, basically. And that's what I'm trying to do is find out what's the greatest good for the community I can do with the resources that we have.
And then a follow-up to this lady back here, if there's a dredge in the lake, why can't it be diverted to her house?
Part of it is we have a dredge. We're trying to follow a schedule. Again, I talk to multiple people every week and they have urgent dredging issues for their individual properties. We're trying to improve our efficiency overall. And if we hop between spots, one of the things that takes the most time in our dredging process is to move the dredge to a new station. And so I'm trying to have us go somewhere that needs it, dredge it till it's done, move somewhere else, dredge it till it's done. And when I say like somewhere that needs it, I don't mean an individual property, but like a whole cove. And we're trying to go for the hot spots there. So there's a lot of places that need to be dredged. I don't disagree with that at all. I'm trying to improve the process overall so we can do the most for the community as a whole.
How often is someone actually manning the dredge? Because they seem to sit there a lot.
It is a lot of time that's had to sit there. This summer, we've had, for a long time, I only had one dredge operator. Later, we got two now, we've had two for the last couple weeks now. And then also with the storms, it's when we have to go look for debris, for example, after the storms, you know, we have trees in the lake. That's me, Holly, and my dredge operator going out to go deal with it. There's only so much we can do at a time. And that's one of the things we're working on is we've had these massive storms. There's a lot of response we have to do for each one of those. That doesn't end just the day the storm happens. We have to go out and do it. And unfortunately, it means I have to pull my dredger to help. Whether that's water sampling, we've had to do a lot of that this summer, or when it comes to pulling trees and things like that out of the lake as well.
And just to add on to that too, the lakes department is only 4 people. So when there is something that does need to be done, exactly what Keegan said, it's the 4 of us all out at once. And there are certain rules that we have to follow, that we cannot have only one person, say, operating a boat. So when we do have to go out and do certain buoy replacements, we need 3 people. So that's pretty much our whole crew that we're taking for an entire day.
Could one of those people be a volunteer?
No.
Not for work like that. I think it's too hazardous to something, it's not something we could do liability wise.
Hi, my name is Jack Simons. I'm chairman of M&E for another 3 weeks, having served for 6 years. I'd like to thank everyone on the dais for putting this together. An excellent program. Also, your serious efforts on behalf of the community with all the storms, the emergency responses, and the support to the neighborhood. You're really a mix of 3 committee efforts here. M&E has land-based ecology. Dave Davies is chair of lakes. He's involved in everything on the lake now. And John Keating with ECC is involved in regulation and support of best practices. Couple of comments. New Department of Environmental Resources was stood up this year by Lake of the Woods in order to give director level skill, expertise, and direction for preserving our lakes. So they're getting on the ground and starting new strategies and efforts. My compliments. Secondly, we've got a number of budget proposals in play. We're advocating return to 2 miles of ditch repair instead of 4,000 linear feet. It was 11,000 linear feet for a number of years and got dropped to 4 because it was thought the money would be better spent on LMIP projects. Unfortunately, they've been delayed. And so we're advocating a return to 10,000 linear feet of ditch repair, and we need resources to do that. We've been advocating for 5 years, twice around the lake for leaf removal. We haven't been making it around once recently. Again, equipment, resources, vendors. Dredging, a very successful program with Keaton's off-season dredging program last spring, produced more sediment into 9.9 and an expanded sediment disposal facility. So an excellent project. We hope to repeat it. If you are interested in these things, please advocate with the board during this budget season, because unless they hear this kind of concern, they can't assign the highest priority that we believe is necessary. Also, if you are interested in this topic, please volunteer for one of these three committees, depending on where your passion is. We need help to advocate. And finally, I'll offer to write down the list of names, contact information from people in the crowd as they leave, so you can handle the questions in the meeting after the meeting. Thank you very much.
Okay, we're going to try to bring this to a close. All I can say is I hear the individual needs, many of which I've met with, and especially during these last floods, I had sticky notes on top of sticky notes on top of sticky notes. And the thing that I hate, anybody that knows me, is that someone asks for help and I can't do it. That keeps me up at night. I mean, I like to do things. I get accused of going overboard sometimes, but I live in the community. I like to see things handled. I hear your pain. Just keep one thing in mind, and I'm glad Jack brought it up. We got the same number of guys on roads that we had with a fraction of the people in the houses that we have now. Nothing's changed. And, you know, on the dredge, I mean, the clam truck that empties the thing, that went down. It was like an act of Congress to get that part. And it's frustrating as can be. There's other times that he's not dredging because I got to make new anchors for the markers that someone says you better fix that one. It's floated and it's supposed to be over here or over there. So the frustration level that we deal with. So I just don't want anybody to think we don't care. I would love to have the more people, the more equipment. Our infrastructure needs an emphasis now. And if you feel that strongly, you need to voice it to the board that our infrastructure right now is in need of help, period. And
board at loa.org gets to all the new board members. Use it. We need it. And now that you got me up here, I want to compliment, I mean, Matilda and Fred put this all together, did a great job. Keegan and Holly are new and victims of circumstances, unfortunately doing a great job. And we need to all appreciate their work.
well, that concludes. And again, if someone wants to leave me an address on a specific place they want me to come do that. Or give it to Jack rather.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.